The Upanishads, translated by F. Max Muller, in 2 parts. Part 1, Khandogya Upanishad 4.16, 16th Khanda. Verily he who purifies, but you, is the sacrifice, for he, the air, moving along, purifies everything. Because moving along he purifies everything, therefore he is the sacrifice. Of that sacrifice there are 2 ways, by mind and by speech. The Brahmin priest performs one of them in his mind. The Hotre, Advaryu, and Udgatre priests perform the other by words. When the Brahmin priest, after the Twataranu-vaka ceremony has begun, but before the recitation of the Paridhaniya hymn, has to break his silence and to speak. He performs perfectly the one way only, that by words. But the other is injured. As a man walking on 1 foot, or a carriage going on 1 wheel is injured, his sacrifice is injured, and with the injured sacrifice, the sacrificer is injured. Yes, having sacrificed, he becomes worse. But when, after the Prataranu-vaka ceremony has begun, and before the recitation of the Paridhaniya hymn, the Brahmin priest has not to break his silence and to speak. They perform both ways perfectly, and neither of them is injured. As a man walking on 2 legs and a carriage going on 2 wheels gets on, so his sacrifice gets on, and with the successful sacrifice, the sacrificer gets on. Yes, having sacrificed, he becomes better. And see, you work at becoming better at the rituals, but you don't necessarily, I don't think you have to wait until you're perfect at it, until you actually start with it. But you never intentionally perform something flawed. And if any mistakes happen during the performance of a sacrifice, as described before, they are remedied by certain interjunctional syllables, vyarete, the nature of which is next described, like you can repeat the word or the sentence or the verse or something like that, is the more common way that this stuff is done. All this is supposed to take place in the forest. While other priests perform the sacrifice, the Brahmin priest has to remain silent, following the whole sacrifice in his mind and watching that no mistake is committed. If a mistake is committed, he has to correct it, and for that purpose, certain corrective penances, prayaskita, are enjoined. The performance of the Brahmin priest resembles the meditations of the sages in the forest, and therefore this chapter is here inserted.